Alrighty, guys, it is Qaaman here today, and I gotta give you a little bit of a heads up. I'm not recording this video in a conventional manner. I'm actually going to go out with my friends for St. Patrick's Day, and I'm actually recording this video in my friend's bathroom because he has family members that are actually trying to sleep, so I can't talk as loud as I normally do. And as always, if you guys have already seen Dragon Ball Super episode 131, you would know that there are some ridiculous spoilers that this video will contain. I mean, like, so much so to the point where the title will kind of give you an idea of how big the spoiler is. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video, and I'm going to talk to you guys about my reaction to episode 131. So as you guys can see from the title, Dragon Ball Super tricked us here. And the thing I gotta react to the most about this episode would have to be the reveal of Android 17. But before we get to that, guys, I gotta talk to you about my actual visual experience watching this episode. Like, I understand that there are a lot of people who give Super flag. And I also understand that there are a lot of people who defend everything that Dragon Ball Super does. I mean, that's just pretty much every series that ever exists. You're always going to have people who love the show. You're always going to have people who hate the show. But I would find it extremely difficult to hate this episode. Like, I'm pretty sure, and I always post a poll to my community tab, you know, after a Super episode airs to get what you guys feel about the episode. And they usually get a lot of votes, and usually it gives me a good idea of whether or not people thought it was a good episode, a great episode, average, bad, you know, just based off of what, you know, the sample size shows. And this episode was probably the greatest Dragon Ball Super episode I've ever seen. So much so to the point where I would even go as far as to saying I think this was the greatest Dragon Ball episode I've ever seen in my life. And there are many reasons as to why I'm saying this. Visually, the fight between Goku and Jiren was at such a pace and at such a level of aesthetic beauty that I don't think I've ever seen a Dragon Ball fight like this. Guys, and this is coming from, you know, a person who's been watching Dragon Ball ever since, you know, he was less than 2 digits old. I mean, I remember I started watching the franchise when I was like 4, man. My brother used to bring over those VHS tapes, and I'm talking about in the fights that I've seen, some of the greatest fights, like Goku versus Vegeta when they were both in the Saiyan Saga, Goku versus Vegeta, the Majin Vegeta fight, Goku versus Piccolo Jr., you know, Future Gohan versus the androids, Goku versus Frieza, Piccolo versus Android 17, Goku versus Nova and Ice Shenron. You know, like, I've seen a lot of really good fights that this Dragon Ball franchise has had. And I don't think I've ever seen one that quite looked like this. Maybe you could say the fight was better in different cases. Maybe there was more tricks to the trade. You know, maybe there was more dynamic moments to the fight because obviously this was just one episode. But in terms of how the fight actually looked, I've never seen it like this. And as I was mentioning before about the pacing, guys, like, I've never seen a Dragon Ball fight that looked this fast. You know, it's like the frames per second, if you guys like do like a lot of video gaming, right? Like, the frames per second were like at 120 hertz, you know, in this fight. Like, it looked so fast, and seeing like the red and blue contrast and all of the foreshadowing of all of the villains that Goku has faced in the past, like Frieza and Android 17 and Android 18, as we were seeing like that going throughout the episode where Goku was about to defeat Jiren, like, that added such an original twist to this battle. It felt like this was the final fight that Goku would ever have in his life, because it literally took you through everything that Goku has ever done, you know, throughout his, you know, his Dragon Ball history, you know, going through all these different villains, all the guys that have threatened him. And I think that the twist that it ultimately brought, and the way I analyzed that, you know, going back to the past and seeing how all of those scenes foreshadowed this moment, would have to be that when you look at Frieza and Android 17 and Android 18, like, these are all characters that were people who were originally villains that are all now fighting for Universe 7, and I definitely feel like that was a great way to see those flashback sequences leading up to this moment, and seeing how, like, you could see Goku in the back fighting as a silhouette, you know, in that whole Jiren clash. And I thought it was just like, it felt like Star Wars in a way, you know, with the whole blue lightsaber of Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader and his red Sith blade. Like, it felt like something I've never seen before. Like, like aesthetically, this episode was completely perfect. In terms of action, this episode was completely perfect. And I'm gonna do a video going more in depth about, this video and to why it's actually a masterpiece, where I'm gonna give you more in depth thoughts, specifically about more detailed things, because obviously I've only seen the episode once now. But if there was one thing that you guys have all been waiting for me to talk about, as I said from the beginning, it would have to be the reveal of Android 17. So, Android 17, man, I did not see this coming. This guy was still alive? Like, to me, guys, and I'm being completely real with you. I'm not like sugarcoating, like I'm not doing anything, to like flaunt this video. Like, I'm being completely genuine. I had no idea that this was actually gonna happen, guys. It's kind of like Toei looked at Geekdom's videos and looked at Herms's tweets and said, okay, well, we're gonna leave a detail out so that Geekdom and Herms don't cover it in their tweets and their YouTube videos, because there was no sign of this coming. Geekdom, and like I said, like I've seen a lot of people who've done spoilers, a lot of people who have close sources in Japan, and nobody saw this coming. And obviously I'm making that up. Like, obviously Toei's not looking at their tweets and stuff. But it is very crazy how all of that just slipped under the spoilers, and there have been a ton of spoilers for Dragon Ball Super over the last few weeks. And when I saw Android 17 step out of that rubble, like, you could ask my friend who saw the episode with me, like, our jaws dropped, because we just didn't see this coming. And in many ways, it is kind of upsetting in a way, because although it's a great twist, and although I think it's great for the episode and it made the episode better, it's like, wow, Dragon Ball Super did something completely unpredictable that we could have never seen coming. At the same time, I think it does kind of erase the emotional tension that was built up around that, because you guys got to remember, like, when 17 died, like, Krillin and Android 18 took that to heart. Like, that was a very deep episode. Like, the fact that this guy gave his life for Universe 7 to survive, like, added a level of tension that Dragon Ball Super really honestly needed. And although obviously we would assume that he would come back with the wish, that was a very deep moment throughout Dragon Ball history. And by bringing him back, although it does eliminate some of that emotional tension that we still felt up until this moment, I do still feel for the last 3 to 4 episodes that 17 was gone, that emotional moment was still in our hearts, but we kind of just got over it. And then by bringing him back, it kind of resurrected that emotional feeling, but in a positive way, because we see with the upcoming episode that 17 and Frieza are going to be fighting Frieza, which leads me into my last point here, guys. So, the spoilers are starting to really confuse me, because I thought Goku was going to be eliminated. Now, obviously, there's still the next episode where, it was talking about 131 that Jiren's going to defeat Goku. But now that 17 is back, that really conflicts with how we all think the ending is going to go. We all thought that 17 was gone, Goku was going to lose to Jiren, and then Frieza was going to have to somehow fight him off. But now, after watching this episode, guys, like, I'm sitting here to myself thinking, I legitimately have absolutely no idea how Dragon Ball Super is going to end. And the fact that if you look at the preview for episode 131, you see nothing but action sequences. You don't see anything about a wish. You don't see anything about Goku, going to see Oob, or, him going back to Earth after Universe 7 wins, or them wishing back anybody. Like, they completely held off on all of that. So, the fact that the show has to completely wrap up everything, and I know people are going to make ASMR jokes about me talking in such a low voice in this video, but the fact that people are going to have to figure out so many different plot lines to squeeze into 131 kind of worries me, because I'm like, how are they going to wrap up so much in just one episode? But at the same time, it makes me excited to see how this is going to end. And I definitely think Dragon Ball Super keeping 17 alive was probably the greatest twist and most unexpected twist that we'd ever seen in Dragon Ball. But my question is, where the hell was he this entire time? Because if you think about it, only a few seconds has really passed in terms of the Tournament of Power. So although it seemed like 17 was gone for a long time, and it obviously it's about a month since 17, blew up in terms of, all of the episodes that have passed in terms of Dragon Ball Super and all of the episodes that weren't airing, it's really honestly been a few seconds. So in reality, we're analyzing this show as seeing Frieza being gone and 17 being gone for a month, but in reality, they've been knocked out for like 30 seconds in terms of the cinematic time, which really adds a more realistic twist in all of this, guys. So ultimately, after saying everything I have to say for this reaction, guys, this was by far like an episode that I don't think we'll ever see again. Like, I'm going to do a video talking more in depth about this, as I said before, but, all of the different things that Super has to do to wrap this up really keeps me excited, and I'm really, really, really excited to see how Dragon Ball Super is going to close this one out. So with everything else said, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys, and I'm sorry for talking so quiet. I won't put any music in this video because I think it will drain out my voice. But that's essentially all I gotta say.